Though we're having many different devices, but let's do an overview of all of them, because there are many of these freaking devices now, but are they really worth it? So the ultimate package from China with newer generation of like weird 3D printed thingies. But what can you actually expect with these things? So at this point we do have like actually 3 different models, or at least 3 different PCB types, because they are like old school, let's say, piece of hardware. Some of them are brand new PCBs, and some of them are like a really old tech coming from the prehistoric. It's absolutely a jump back into time, but you know, they're printing these 3D printed cases. But let's do a quick overview of these devices, what is going on actually. So let's start off with this yellow one. So there comes really some serious heat from here. So one of the reasons why this thing was like the weird thing that was going on is that the one of the screws were already loose. But you know what's even more interesting, that they didn't implement a backup battery. Okay, that's weird. So we do have like a single style of memory. Let's see what they're using. They're using Kingston. Okay, that's nice. But yeah, again, it's a single channel. So this is the performance, what you're getting. Alright, let's click this back in. So there was nothing really much to see. So we do have like some different connectors on the main board, but I think we cannot really configure anything when it comes to different kind of, let's say, adding new, let's say, SATA ports or anything else. It's just like a simple main board with this massive cooler. So what is interesting, that we do have actually a socket over here. And would it be optional to actually upgrade this old school chip with a new one? Maybe an i5 or an i7? Or is it just going to be like another way too expensive thing to do? But you don't see anything going on, so let's see, this might be set correctly. Okay, this is messed up, look at this. Oh man, does hiccup. It's like freaking uncontrollable. This thing is way too sensitive when it comes to the joystick. I already noticed a lot of glitching going on, but I just wanted to see what's going on when it comes to the 2-dimensional games, because most of the time it is highly possible 2-dimensional stuff can be playable. And let's be honest, there are like a lot of great titles. PlayStation Portable is another system that can be very troublesome to actually emulate. However, when it comes to the PCs, we do have like overall better performance. We can also do a little bit of tweaking in the upscaling, but at this point I just wanted to see what is going on. Does it actually work and how does it play? Because native resolution is not like the best way to play PlayStation Portable. Darius Boost is not like the most difficult game to actually emulate. Of course we're going to be needing some God of War, but I just wanted to see what is going on. So those mini games can be played without any problem whatsoever, but also I see that we have some overall great performance when it comes to these kind of games too. So PlayStation Portable on native is quite promising, that is one thing. You can get into the menu, so far I have seen, we can speed it up. Nope. So that's quite unfortunate. Well, it would be fun to actually get into the main menu, or at least the emulator menu, and mess around with its settings to see how far we can push it sometimes. But I'm just going to be leaving it as it is. But let's take a close look at what you can actually do. So out of the box, this thing comes with all kinds of different platforms it supports. Of course, due to the power of the game box depends how much we can upscale, or not at all, or we can play. So you can see we're having all kinds of different emulators. I think when it comes to the GameCube, Wii, Sega Saturn, and Dreamcast, there we're going to be finding quite a lot of challenges. But then overall, I think it's pretty cool. PlayStation 2. So it is quite a nice overall collection. I love how they implement all of the thumbnails nicely. I don't know if there is a video. No, they didn't implement the video, but it's absolutely awesome, and you know, there's something you don't see very often. So at this point I must say that I'm quite surprised how well they configured everything at this point. So the overall configuration, what is cool, that we're having even categories: 2-player games, 4-player games, all games seems to be, arcade, light gun games. So it will be interesting to see if they have like this plug and play kit in the future, where we can just plug in this machine and just play light gun games. Vertical games, absolutely awesome, but also having wheel games. That is the first time I have ever seen it on the game box like this. So we have really awesome to add, like say a racing wheel, action, adventure, beat 'em ups. So beat 'em ups is going to be absolutely massive, but this is not a problem I do notice with a lot of these things. Look at how many duplicates. Moving on to the red one. So let's see, we're having over here Final Bornea, Ateri, so it's also a little bit of unfortunate not everything has like logos. Maybe I'm going to be a little bit too nitpicky about it. Let's lower the overall, let's say, lighting in my studio. So the overall compatibility with a lot of different systems is absolutely great with Battleship. But, you know, there was always like only Plants vs Zombies on here. Oh, Plants vs Zombies and something else, okay. So Xbox, just a radio, the same shenanigans that we have seen before. But, you know, let's take a close look also at the specs itself, because what's going on over here. So let's go to System Settings, pressing the wrong button because they map it every single time differently. Information, let's check it out. So what kind of space do we have? Like 500 gigabyte like they promised? Okay, so that's good. This model is called Skybay. Intel Celeron, oh man, 3865U, so it's like a freaking dual core. Nothing very fancy. The spin sounds like a vacuum cleaner, but it is like 29 Celsius in idle mode. So overall, it's not like super bad when it comes to the temperatures, but you know, what specification of this, they're trying to get you believe that it's going to be running like flawlessly, like when it comes to the Dolphin emulator. But we're going to be testing out a couple of these things. But there is all kinds of different stuff in here, but I can tell you that this is not going to be something you can play some high-end games with. Maybe some Atomic Wave and Native Revolution, but beside that, you know, Sega Saturn, there's only one single game on here. Dreamcast, same story. And that's what you're getting like with these smaller versions. But again, like, in my opinion, they should just remove it, everything that is not like really compatible with Steam. Like, okay. I think I'm actually having a problem over here because I can't get this freaking mainboard out. It's just been sliding in, or it looks like it, but somehow it's so stuck I cannot wiggle it or get it out. So, but you can actually see, I don't know if it's actually like able to see, that this thing does come with a single RAM module, so that's not going to be like super high speed. But you can slide it out normally. And this is a mainboard that we have seen before in different builds. So they're still reusing these old PC parts. I don't see any problem whatsoever beside like bashing myself into the freaking track. Let's see if I can have the boost ready. I have no idea. Oh, there we go. Oh crap, crashed again. You're getting the point. This works fine. So that's kind of cool. Woohoo! Man, I love Burnout. Such a great game. You know, like these games are absolutely timeless. They're always fun to play. Woo! But let's see if we can manage to accelerate here. There we go. But yeah, there was no problem here, as you can actually see over here. So Sega Dreamcast emulation is actually possible and absolutely awesome. Woohoo! Just cruising around. Don't care about the money. Oh yeah. Nope. Jump. Cool. The reason I wanted to try GoldenEye because there was always something mess up. So we do have this weird line over here, but okay, it's forgivable. You know, this is what I mean. But it's forgivable. Let's put it that way. Let's boot it up. Let's get into the game and let's see what's going on. So at this point I don't expect much problems. Even on this really old PC, you can see that Sega Dreamcast, or actually the Naomi arcade system, runs quite well. So let's see what's going on with the analog stick. Okay, so it's the same situation like with the Atomic Wave. We can actually use the D-pad only. The analog stick isn't configured at all, so that's the thing that we're going to be needing to live with. But throughout the game I don't see really a lot of glitches. Oh wait, I see like a minor one over there. But beside that, I think this is going to be an overall fun experience. And last but not least, let's take a close look at this particular model. And it came with a brand new chip. And this thing has a lot of potential, but you know, when it comes to the price, that's going to be a debatable situation here. Where we can buy all kinds of N100 cheap solutions, i5s used, is this thing actually going to be something good to pick up? Because even if it's a ready to go plug and play with everything like a controller and a 500 gigabyte hard disk in the inside, we can just build these things ourselves. However, of course, not everybody has a 3D printed, but it's just going to be a fun thing to see what are we getting when it comes to, let's say, all of the parts and how did he actually make it. So far I can see it in passive cooling. And we can have an option to slide out the hard drive over here. Let's see what they're using, because sometimes they're like prehistoric old. The Toshiba over here, so it's not like this very old one that I've been seeing with previous ones, but they're not, I think they're not even brand new discs, they're just using these second-hand ones. But the way how this slides in, that is actually cool. Okay, so looking into the case, I don't find any different way to open it up. So the thing that we're going to be needing to do is removing the plastic nut with the screws. We can slide out this hard drive, and then we can slide out the main board itself. That is how you're going to be doing some maintenance on this. An interesting but strange way. But the reason I wanted to do this is to see what are we having when it comes to, let's say, the configuration and upgrade possibilities. So it does come with an active fan with a massive metal block underneath. So this is just a PWM, so I just think it's going to be adjustable RPM. So the unfortunate part is that we're only having one slot when it comes to, let's say, the memory. And the memory we're going to be having over here is an 8 GB, so it's a little bit bigger or more at least than the previous models. We can replace the battery if this is going to be dead. It can give you a little bit of problems for upgradability. So what is interesting that they're saying something about switching to Windows, but storage capacity wise there is only a hard drive attached to it and there is no NVMe, so I'm guessing we cannot switch to Windows, but we can upgrade it. So if you're going to be slapping an NVMe on there, we can also do it for Bodacera. So let's say if you're going to be making a backup through software with this drive, you can flash it to a 500 GB or bigger NVMe and can use it there. And there's also an option for an M2 over there, but that's it. This is the only thing that we can do. There is no, I think there is no like built-in Wi-Fi, or at least that I can see. And when it comes to powering, it's kind of interesting that we do have a 4-pin over here, but beside that there is no way of, let's say, powering on beside that. So this is the main board, and it seems to be looking like a very new one. Do we have on the hard drive? Or at this point, nothing, because it seems to be my controller is not working like it should be. And this is why I said I want to have front USB ports. Let's see what's going on over there. Does this help? I have the feeling that my controller ports are just dead or some kind. Use a different port. Oh, there we go. Finally, it has been connected. The N100, or at least that was the advertising, and later on we're going to be checking out the specs of the CPU. See what we're getting first of all of the menu itself. So all kinds of cool stuff can be played with this, like when it comes to MAME. With MAME it's quite interesting because if you want to play Killer Instinct, we can actually do that with a mini PC like this. So Atari, that can be played on many game sticks, so you don't need to buy an expensive PC like this, but it's just an absolutely great add-on. I think one of the things we're going to be focusing on mainly is going to be GameCube, PlayStation 1, 2, and also doing some upscaling with the resolution, because that is going to be one of the interesting parts when using Bodacera and a modern PC like an N100 at least. That's what we're going to be expecting today. Weekend going on. Everything of the controls have been set, so you don't need to do anything about that. They're implementing a scanline filter, but these games will run just fine without any problem most of the time. And again, if you just want to use some MAME games, you don't need to get a more powerful or N100. You can use very old PCs for this. So that is something I just want to give as an extra information, or this is a different configuration. However, this may be a fun overall idea to look into it, and we'll see what we can actually do more in the end, because this is absolutely awesome. Where we have many games to emulate. We can also just play Windows games and newer generation games like the Turtle game. What I love about it is that they implemented the bezels, but you can shut them down in the menu if you want to. On board with a simple reason, because these things do struggle. We can also lower to 480p. And also depending what kind of game you want to play, but some games are very easy to emulate and you can just even maybe get a little bit of a higher resolution going on. But even the frames per second are hitting 25, 23, you can just decide for yourself if this is going to be playable enough with this particular model due of the GPU and the newer chip that we're having. So having a 40p rendering resolution, and you can just actually see that we're having 30 frames per second. So far, no problems. Sometimes when I'm saying it a little bit too out loud, it just starts stuttering automatically. But the point is that you can see we're having a little bit of play with it, and 40p is just fine. It looks great. But if you want to get into higher overall, say, options, what you need to do is find a mini PC that has maybe an AMD Ryzen chip with a more powerful GPU combination or built-in, or maybe have a different configuration, or an old PC with a GPU in the inside to have overall better performance. Decoration, or at least the side with the overall handheld decoration, what looks kind of interesting and weird at the same time. We can even have a full screen where we can switch between them. But this is a system that can also be played on low-rand, let's say low-rand chips. So we've been testing a lot of different, let's say, PlayStation 1 games, and you can just see with even older CPU, GPU combination, we had the option to do a little bit of an upscaling, sometimes even to 4K. That looks amazing. Game over here, the Console game, we can even do a little upscaling for 80p or maybe even 1080p, 720p. But again, it's going to be a hit or miss with some of these systems. So that's absolutely awesome. So we can finally play some PlayStation 2 on Emulation on a quite cheap box. And I think that's one of the benefits of, let's say, the performance of many, let's say, newer generation of chipsets. We didn't test out the Atomic Wave. We're going to be using this on just the native resolution. And also here we can do a little bit of tweaking with upscaling. Yep, that is even possible with this. So let's see how it runs on native first. And Demolish Fist, I find this such a weird overall experience where I'm just a big fan of the Street of Rage, Final Fight, you know, the games like those 3D games never really touched my wicked soul when it comes to playing some video games. But let's move to the Flycast emulator and upscale it to the 920. And you can just see that it struggles big time. So even if you can do some upscaling with Atomic Wave, you're still limited to the onboard CPU, GPU. We can mess around with different emulators. Getting through the game, now finally stop stuttering when I was actually dying. But you need to do a little bit tweaking with per game, and I think maybe with some 480p. But yeah, I'm just going to be honest, if you're going to be playing this on native resolution, it looks great when it comes to that. So where the N100 has a lot of potential for a low budget device, you can build these things way cheaper. You can pick up these things later in the future for not a lot of money, but you're not going to be having this fancy purplish like color case, but just a normal mini PC. So when it comes to these under $100, we're going to be having all kinds of different solutions, but these are not that great. Like, they have some potential, but when it comes to overall performance, it's absolutely disappointing. So are these things better than the Android boxes? Some ways they are, but they do come with a hefty price point. Let me know, did you ever pick one of these things up? Join me here on the channel, and it would be great to see you in the next video.